Hi, we're here today with my long-term friend, Glynda. I almost said old friend, but then I stopped myself.
That's nice of you.
Yeah, I'm trying to be nice today.
That's very nice.
Okay, long-term friend. But I have to be honest, we've known each other 29 years. We just look really, really good. Really good.
Yeah.
We do. Well, we're 41.
She threw that up there.
It came up on us fast. It did. We met when we were 12. It's gone by super fast.
It has.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of life in those.
That's what I was going to say. You
Years.
took that from me. Yeah, there's so... What I was going to say is we've learned a lot. It all started when it was a hit and run. I was 15 years old.
Well, it started before that, but that was the big adventure.
I just wanted Taco Bell.
Okay, yeah. It sounded good at the time.
It sounded really good.
But now it's disgusting. I would never
Yeah, I mean,
Taco Bell.
well, I have to be honest again. I ate it yesterday.
I'm going to forgive you for that.
They have a new thing. It's good. It's like it's a triple melt. And Taco Bell does not sponsor me. I have 18 subscribers, so it's just really good. For $1? Okay, anyway. I mean, yeah, I'm sorry. I know you. Okay, our camera lady today is awesome, but she shops at Whole Foods, so she probably hates me now, but. All right.
I just think you're eating plastic.
It might be plastic, but they flavor it pretty well. Okay, fine. I'll stop. I don't know. Anyway, our show is called Authenticate. It's not really a show, but we just like to talk to each other and hear each other's stories and get them out there because sometimes life is hard, like often, and sometimes you can feel like you're drowning really like you're drowning. And Glynda has stories to tell and of overcoming a lot. She had brain surgery. Her newborn daughter had a very traumatic accident with skull fractures. So much. That's where we're gonna go.
That's just in the last few years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we might have to do 2 podcasts to get it all, because I think this camera, as awesome as it is, records for about 20 minutes and then needs a break. So, pause. We'll just see how it goes.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's start with Lenny. Let's start with her. That's the pre-story, like your pregnancy story.
Before she was born.
Yeah.
Okay, Lenny is my second child. She's 4, so I have an older child, and before I got pregnant with my oldest, I had a miscarriage, and took me a year after that to get pregnant with my oldest. So my oldest child and my husband decided that she needed a sibling, and this was of vital importance, and I was not convinced, but I jumped on board eventually and lost another baby. And I told the Lord that I was not in the boat for this one. I did not want to continue to lose. It hurts too much, and I didn't want to do it.
Right.
But I also don't want to not do something if that's what he wants me to do.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to church, and our pastor, who I'd never heard after several years of going there, spoke. And this is the only time still I've ever heard him talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
That his first wife, who had passed away many years ago, before their children were born, had lost a baby at 6 months. And he's telling their story about how hard that was on them. And as he was speaking, he just said this phrase. He said, and after a while, hope began to grow. And when he said that, something just went off on the inside of me that I would have another daughter and her name would be Hope. So, continue with that. Fast forward a year and 2 days later is when Lenny was born, which is kind of amazing. Why does God always do things in 1 year? I don't understand that. Like, I would read in the Bible, like, oh, you're going to have a child 1 year later. I don't know. Some scholar's going to explain that to me, but, or maybe God will. Anyway, as I was pregnant, so I'm guessing, I think I was maybe 5 months along. And I was going to a meeting, and my oldest daughter's school and fell going up the stairs onto my stomach. And I felt fine. I didn't really think that I fell hard or anything, but my husband over the phone told me to go and get checked. So I was seeing a midwife at the time, and I went, did a non-stress test, and they said, everything's fine, you're fine, don't worry about it. My husband said, oh no, you're going to have a sonogram. You're going all the way. So got a friend of mine, and we went to the hospital, and after, I don't know if you really want the long version of this.
Yeah, and I, whenever you said Brent told you to go to the hospital, I just thought what went through my head was wise man. Like, he just really loves you, loves his children, and wanted to take care of everything.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
That's how he is.
Yeah.
So at the hospital, funny story, the sonogram was taking forever, and when I am in extremely uncomfortable medical positions, I like to crack jokes. And if you don't laugh, then I have a problem with you.
Like, you're rude. Like, at least a courtesy laugh.
A little smirk, a snicker, a grin maybe, perhaps. I'm not asking for a lot.
Yeah.
Nothing out of this woman. An hour. Sonogram went on for a solid hour.
And you're getting nervous because you're
No, I wasn't nervous. I was angry.
You're mad.
I was mad at her for not laughing at my jokes. And I'm funny. I was mad.
You're also Irish, maybe.
A little.
But okay. That's awesome, though. I like it.
So by the time they put me back in my room, I'm really mad. Like, my face was red and hot. Like, I needed to calm down because I was really angry. But the doctor comes in a little while later and says that the placenta, when I fell, separated, and there was bleeding between the placenta and the uterine wall. And they needed to move me to a hospital that had a NICU and all the equipment so that they could deliver the baby and make sure that the baby, I don't remember his medical terms, but make sure the baby would survive. Up her chances for high medical care. And I put my hands on my stomach and I said, nobody's taking this baby out of me. What are you talking about? And at this particular hospital, not speaking to all hospitals, but this particular one, I was considered cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs because I was going to a midwife who was not affiliated, who wasn't delivering at the hospital. She did not have delivery privileges at this hospital. So the doctor talked down to me and told me, I mean, in his medical jargon, that I didn't know what I was talking about, but I know who told me I was going to have this baby. So I know God, and I don't know if you know God, but he talked to me, and I know he did, and this baby is not coming out at 5 months. So do what you got to do, doc. So they transferred me to the other hospital, and funny thing, in the ambulance, the paramedic that was in there with me was talking, and I'm calm, and he wanted to know why. And I told him, well, God told me I'm having this baby, so this baby is not coming out at 5 months. And he said he's a believer, and he's like, that's awesome, can I pray with you?
Wow.
I said, yes, you sure can. So we prayed in the ambulance on the way over. So now I'm cracking jokes and people are laughing, so I'm doing better.
Right.
Like, thank you. Just a courtesy grin, but he actually was laughing, so I was on a roll. Anyway, we got to the hospital, and they transferred me in the room and put me in labor and delivery for the whole evening, which is not fun because Lenny doesn't, well, when she was in utero, she does not like monitors or sonograms at all, which is why I thought the sonogram was taking a long time, but I thought, well, this baby, man, she does not like it. So I thought she's just running away or something. So the next day, after spending the entire evening in labor and delivery with Lenny not wanting to do the monitor, not getting any rest, anything, they finally transferred me to another room. Now my husband's going to argue with me and tell me I'm wrong, but I think I was there for 3 days, but I think he said 5. We'll see. I'll get my medical
They blend
records.
in.
I'm like,
You just have to sit there.
I just know I was in the hospital way too long and I wanted to go home, and I felt totally fine. So after a few days, somehow he mysteriously talks them into performing another sonogram. Mysteriously. And they did another one.
What does that mean? Mysteriously.
They never have an explanation for anything, but I know who I serve, and I know whose plans my life rolls on.
Okay.
So you can have all your medical mysteries. I understand who's really in charge of my life.
I thought you meant maybe Brentley was just like really persuasive.
He is persuasive, but
Okay.
I don't think it was just his slick talking.
Okay.
So they did another sonogram. This one didn't take as long. And I came back to the room, and then they eventually came in and said, well, we think the bleeding has dissolved because we can't find it. There's no bleeding anymore. So your body has healed itself. And I said, can I go home now?
But before they're telling you that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That it would take a long time, and I might be on bed rest, and
Right.
worst case, but suddenly there's
Yeah.
no bleeding. And it's funny that Brentley and I looked at each other and we said, can we go home now? Like, I know that I'm fine, so bring me my discharge papers.
Right.
So they brought our papers, and we went home, I think that same day. The rest of the pregnancy was pretty uneventful. Nothing else really happened. So fast forward till after she's born, and it's maybe 2 weeks postpartum, and we were going out for breakfast, our first meal. We're all going to go out. So at the time, we had stairs in our home they're carpeted, and we were upstairs getting ready, and my husband was carrying the baby downstairs in his arms like this, with one hand on the rail so he could be safe. And when he got to the bottom step, he thought that he was on this wood floor, but he was still on the step. So he took a step and he fell. And when he fell, the weight of him falling, the baby went through his arms onto the wood floor. And I just heard him screaming, call 911, call 911. And I ran and fell and couldn't get my legs to work behind me. And I went to the top of the stairs, and I saw him holding her and him saying, we fell, she fell, call 911. So I tried to dial, couldn't get the phone to dial, just couldn't figure out where the 9 and the 1 were on my phone because my brain just quit working. I finally called, told them, hang up. I went downstairs, and my husband was sitting on the floor holding her, and he had his hand, her head was in his hand, and he is hysterical crying. And I didn't say, though, I learned a lesson a few years before. When my oldest child got the tip of her finger cut off. And I had a neighbor who God just put in the right place at the right time. I've never seen her since, actually. They randomly moved out one day. Just poof, gone. I don't know where they went. But I was really upset, and the paramedics were there in chaos, and she came and put her hands on my shoulders, and she said, get it together. And I'm like, I don't know, this lady, you're really in my face.
Right.
And she said she's a retired paramedic. She knows what's going on, that the baby is freaking out if I freak out, and I need to get it together. What do you need? So I gave her the list and did what we need to do. She said, you can freak out later. I said, okay. So all that was handled, and it just instantly came back to me when I saw my husband there with my daughter. But now I'm furious because this enemy has come 2 times to try to take my baby that God himself promised me I was going to have. Oh no. I mean, I was furious, and I told him, get it together, exactly the same way. And he looks at me, and I said, this is your baby. We are the parents here. And God promised us this baby right here. And there's no demon in hell that's taking this baby out. It's not happening. So you're laying hands on her, you pray.
Because she wasn't breathing.
She wasn't breathing.
She was, yeah, because
She
I
wasn't
told
moving.
the story before. I mean, she's just laying there.
She wasn't crying, nothing. And afterwards he told me he could feel her head swelling in his hand. He could just feel it swelling. And afterwards he's asked every doctor, probably every doctor he's ever seen since that day, and told them what happened and asked, why did she do that? Why wasn't she moving or crying or anything? And they all say, I don't know. There's no way to know.
Or breathing. I mean.
Yeah, they all say there's no way to know.
Okay, so back up a little bit. So that they fall, and I didn't know the part that she goes through his arm. Okay, I didn't know that part. So they fall. She's not moving. She's not crying. She's not breathing. And he's flipping out. And so you are grabbing his shoulders saying, you grabbed his shoulders and said, get it together. Okay. So does he get it? I mean, he kind of gets it together.
He calmed down a little bit, but he just couldn't
Yeah.
He was just holding her,
Right.
thinking,
What
I
just
don't know what to
happened?
do.
She appears dead. She's not breathing.
She's not breathing, she's not crying, she's not breathing.
Moving.
Just limp. So, and instantly I felt death in my house. So you did another podcast,
Yeah.
and the woman on there said death was in the room.
Yeah, she was in a coma, dying of, yeah.
Yeah, it is a
Spirit.
tangible feeling.
Wow.
You feel it and you know it's death. There's nothing.
Well, there's actually a spirit of death.
Yes.
That comes, and it's in the book of Revelations, and it talks about it.
And I knew he was there. I knew death was there. I knew its name.
Were you going to take that temptation, or were you going to stand firm?
My baby's not leaving. Nope.
Yeah.
So and to this day, I couldn't tell you what I said or what scripture I prayed over her. I don't know. It's whatever the Holy Spirit gave me to say at the time.
You just felt, it just rose up in you, this anger of a no.
Yes, and I paced, there's a hallway right there, and I just paced the hallway, telling death to get out of my house. I know I quoted scripture, but I don't remember which one it was at the time, this much time later. But I prayed over her, I laid hands on her, spoke life back into her body. And then all at this same time, the doorbell rings for the paramedics are there. So I open the door and they come in, take the baby and go out to the front yard with her. And they're treating us very suspiciously, obviously, because things happen to babies all the time. And they want to make sure that it really was an accident. And so I know from being with my 1-year-old, my oldest daughter, she was one that you can ride in the ambulance, but they told me, you're not allowed to ride in the ambulance in these circumstances or whatever. So I said, that's fine. Just take her and tell me where you're going to be and I'll meet you there. And they took her out in the yard and she started crying. So I just kind of went like that, like, okay, here we go. It's good. Okay, she's good.
Right, and that's like the most beautiful cry you've ever heard, I'm
Yes.
sure.
And they instantly came to me, oh, it's okay that she's crying. I just nodded my head, like,
Right.
and they put her in the ambulance and took her to the hospital. So my husband and I got in the car. Actually, I don't remember how I got there. I'm not even gonna lie. I don't remember how I got to the hospital. I know it's right by my house, but I had an older child, and God just gives children what to say. So she was coming down the stairs behind my husband holding Lenny. And while they're on the floor, she reached her hand over and put it on his shoulder and she said, "It's okay, Daddy. It's just an accident." With such grace and mercy. And she's 5. She was 5, I guess. Almost 5 at the time. So she was 4. And he just looked at her like, your little 4-year-old is extending grace to you. And I feel like that's the Lord saying to him, it's okay. It's not your fault. It's okay. And as we were in the hospital, people kept asking him over and over what happened to every doctor, every nurse, every paramedic, everyone that came through. And I guess at some point they decided with themselves, she's okay. It was legit. It really was an accident. And they could tell he was just devastated. And one of the paramedics came up and said, I just want you to know that when my daughter was little, she was on my shoulders and she fell backwards onto the floor and hit her head. And she's just fine. And she's fine. So it's okay. It happens. The next day, a doctor told us that they had dropped their baby when their baby was small. And then, I can't remember whether mine was first. No, mine was, so we were in the room the next day and I've been up all night, like holding her like a China doll, trying to nurse her. She's only 2 weeks old, and put her delicately back in the bed, and I'm over her like a hawk. I didn't sleep. I'm like, tuned into my baby. I was praying like all night long. And the next day the nurse came in and was making a joke or something about bathing her and how she needed a bath and did I want to do it, and bringing the stuff over. And I don't remember what I said, but something about, I was basically asking her if she was going to be okay, but I didn't ask that. It was something about, I didn't know how long we were going to be there or whatever. And she said, oh, she's going to be just fine. And I just looked at her kind of with my mouth hung open, and she said, I haven't said that to you? And I said, no. And she got really emotional and said, I'm so sorry.